have sung the praises of One Piece in a couple of videos on this channel and will continue to do so until the day I die. It is honestly one of my favorite stories that I have ever been introduced to for so many reasons, but the most recent chapter brought up a discussion with a friend that inspired me to talk about one of my problems with it. If you aren't caught up to chapter 877 and you care about spoilers, then click away because this video is not spoiler free. Chapter 877 ended with everyone's favorite Jaguar Mink Pedro blowing himself up to protect the Straw Hats, and I've had a little bit of discussion about whether or not he is actually dead, and I'm hoping he is, for a couple reasons. Number one is the selfish reason of it has been clear to me from early on in this arc that either Pedro or Jinbei is going to die, and if Pedro dies, it is very likely that Jinbei is safe. Reason number two is the series' death problem. Now, this isn't a huge problem for me. For the most part, I really appreciate Oda's hesitance to kill off characters. It relieves some of the stress of watching or reading, which is nice in this era of ultra-gritty don't pick a favorite because no one is safe media, but it also makes it so when Oda does make the decision to kill off a character, it carries weight and impact that shows like Game of Thrones just don't have for me anymore. I love Game of Thrones, but the longer I have watched it, the less character deaths affect me. Take my reaction of horror and panic over the death of a certain character in Season 1 versus my reaction of, well, that was sad, over the death of my favorite character in the show in Season 6. I'm no longer surprised when a beloved character dies in Game of Thrones. Or another popular show that is a great example of this is The Walking Dead. It's gotten to the point where I watch this with my family, and when someone dies, the reaction is almost never sadness, and almost always, well, I haven't killed anyone in a bit, it was bound to happen. Oda's regard for life is what made Ace and Whitebeard's deaths in Marineford so surprising and upsetting, but he also showed that he knows how to expertly handle a death scene so as to not make it feel cheap and like it only exists for shock value. Ace's death was so well handled as Luffy's first true loss that we get to see in the series, and Whitebeard's death showed exactly how formidable Luffy's enemies were, while also being a symbol that has affected this world forever. But even though he's shown the clear ability to write these scenes and write them well, he doesn't. Even when death is the result that would make the most sense. Even when his resistance to killing a character negatively impacts the storyline. The earliest example of this that I can think of, and the one that most clearly parallels what Pedro has done, would be all the way back in Alabasta. This is the arc that took me from being a casual fan to not being able to get enough, so this is not me saying that the arc is bad, but my biggest gripe with it by far was the handling of Pell. Pell's most defining characteristic by far was his loyalty to Vivi and the royal family. No moment demonstrated this more than the one during the final battle when the Straw Hats fail to disarm the bomb in time. When all hope seems lost, Pell flies the bomb into the sky as a sacrifice play to protect the city. That is, we thought it was a sacrifice play until it was revealed later on that he was fine. The reveal that Pell survived the explosion not only doesn't make any sense, but every time I find myself going through Alabasta again, the knowledge that he was never in any real danger and is going to be fine kind of cheapens the moment for me. A sacrifice play just doesn't have the same impact if it wasn't actually a sacrifice. Pell's death also could have served as a stark reminder of how much the stakes have been raised now that we're in the Grand Line. And with Alabasta being the first big challenge Luffy and co have faced here, it would have been a fantastic place for that reminder. And that brings us full circle back to Pedro, who has blown himself up to protect the Straw Hats. This is the kind of death that his character deserves, not a result of his already shortened lifespan, but protecting something he believes in. It's an intense emotional moment, and also, in the same way Pel's death would have been a representation of the danger the Grand Line poses, this is a perfect way to remind everyone that these are Yonko we're dealing with here, that the danger is greater than anything we have seen before. I have loved Pedro, and that is exactly why I think that this moment should be the end for him. Because this is the end that a character like him deserves.